Emma Thompson rushed through the busy airport terminal, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. She clutched her boarding pass tightly in one hand and pulled her suitcase behind her with the other. The big clock on the wall showed she had only 40 minutes before her flight to Manchester would take off. Her heart was beating fast, not just from rushing, but from excitement and worry mixed together. This was the most important day of her working life. After months of phone calls, emails, and sleepless nights, she finally had a chance to meet the clients who could save her small business. Emma had started her consulting company 3 years ago, after her husband left and she needed to support herself and a young son Tom. The business had been doing okay, but lately, money was getting tighter, bills were piling up, and she was behind on rent for a small office. This contract could change everything. It could mean Tom wouldn't have to change schools, and they could keep their little apartment near the park where he loved to play football. As she approached the check-in counter, Emma tried to calm her breathing. The young woman behind the counter smiled at her warmly. Emma smiled back, feeling a little better. She handed over her passport and boarding pass, watching as the agent typed something into her computer. "I'll need to check your luggage, Mrs. Thompson," the agent said. "Let me just scan it through our system first." Emma placed her suitcase on the scale and waited. She had packed carefully the night before, making sure to include the special items that made this trip more than just business. Inside her suitcase, wrapped in soft tissue paper, were her grandmother's 3 vintage perfume bottles. They were beautiful, with crystal stoppers and delicate patterns etched into the glass. More importantly, they were all she had left of the woman who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. Grandma Rose had been everything to Emma: mother, father, best friend, and teacher. She had taught Emma how to be strong, how to work hard, and how to never give up on her dreams. The perfume bottles had sat on Grandma Rose's dressing table for as long as Emma could remember. When she died 2 years ago, Emma couldn't bear to use the perfume inside, but she kept the bottles close. They made her feel like her grandmother was still with her, especially during difficult times like this. Also in her suitcase was Tom's football trophy from his first big win last month. It wasn't expensive or fancy, but Tom had been so proud when his team won their first game of the season. He had carried it everywhere for a week, showing it to neighbors, teachers, and anyone who would look. Emma had promised to take a photo of it with her new clients. She thought it would be a good conversation starter and show them that she was not just a businesswoman, but also a caring mother who understood what mattered to families. The check-in agent's smile slowly faded as she looked at her computer screen. She called over a supervisor, and they whispered together for a moment. Emma felt her stomach start to twist with worry. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the agent said, her voice gentle but firm, "but I'm afraid several items in your luggage are now banned from checked bags under the new TSA regulations that went into effect this month." Emma's stomach dropped like a stone. "What do you mean?" "What items?" "The glass perfume bottles and the metal trophy." The agent explained. "The new rules are very strict about glass containers over a certain size and metal objects that could potentially be used as weapons." Emma stared at the agent, trying to understand. "But these are personal items. The perfume bottles belong to my grandmother, and the trophy belongs to my son. They're not dangerous, I understand." "And I'm truly sorry," the agent said, and Emma could see genuine sympathy in her eyes. "But the regulations don't allow for exceptions. These rules are in place for everyone's safety." Emma felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She looked at the departure board and saw her flight was now boarding. Round her, other passengers were moving quickly toward the gates, talking on phones, laughing with friends. Her world felt like it was moving in slow motion. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have two choices," the agent replied softly. "You can either leave the items here with us, and we'll dispose of them properly, or you can take them with you and catch a later flight." Em looked at the small pile of belongings that meant the world to her. Each item told a story of love, memory, and hope. How could she choose between her past and her future? As Emma stood frozen at the check-in counter, staring at her grandmother's perfume bottles and Tom's trophy, she heard raised voices coming from the security area nearby. She turned to see what was happening and noticed a young man about her age talking to a security officer. His face was red with frustration and his hands were shaking slightly. "Please, you don't understand," the young man was saying. "These knives are my life. They're not just tools. They're my family's history." The security officer, a tired-looking man with kind eyes, shook his head sadly. "I'm sorry, son, I really am. But the new regulations are very clear. No knives of any kind in checked or carry-on luggage. Not even cooking knives." Emma watched as the young man, who looked to be in his mid-20s, carefully lifted a beautiful wooden box from his bag. Inside were 6 cooking knives, each one shining like silver. They were clearly old but very well cared for. The handles were smooth from years of use, and the blades looked sharp and perfect. "My name is James Mitchell," the young man said, his voice getting quieter. "These knives belong to my grandfather, and his grandfather before him. My grandfather taught me everything I know about cooking. He died last year, and he left me these knives. They're all I have left of him." James looked down at the knives with such love and sadness that Emma felt her heart break for him. She could see tears forming in his eyes, though he was trying hard not to cry. "I'm flying to Birmingham for the biggest cooking competition of my life," James continued. "I've been working toward this for 3 years. I saved every penny I could to enter. Without these knives, I don't stand a chance. Other cooks will have professional equipment. But these knives, they're special. They've been making beautiful food for almost 100 years." The security officer looked genuinely sorry. "I have a grandson about your age. I know what family treasures mean. But I can't make exceptions. If I let you through with these, I could lose my job. And other people might try to bring dangerous items through." Emma felt a deep sadness watching this. She understood exactly how James felt. The terrible choice between something precious from the past and something important for the future. As she looked round the airport, she began to notice other people having similar problems. At another counter, a woman in her 30s was arguing with airport staff about her electronics. The woman had brown hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and wore a simple blue dress. She looked professional but very worried. "My name is Lucy Davis," the woman was saying. "I'm a teacher, and I'm moving to a new city for a job. My interview is tomorrow morning. And I need these devices to show my lesson plans and teaching materials." The airport worker was examining her laptop and tablet carefully. "I'm sorry, miss, but these battery packs are too large according to the new regulations. They could potentially overheat and cause problems on the plane." Lucy looked like she might cry. "But I spent weeks preparing my presentation. All my work is on these devices. How am I supposed to teach without them?" Near the departure gate, Emma noticed an elderly man sitting alone on a bench. He had white hair and wore a neat brown sweater. In his hands, he held a small plastic bag filled with medicine bottles. He wasn't arguing with anyone or making a fuss. He just sat there, staring at the bag with the saddest expression Emma had ever seen. Emma walked over to him, drawn by his quiet sadness. "Excuse me, sir, are you all right?" The old man looked up at her with tired blue eyes. "Oh, hello, dear. My name is William Brown. I'm supposed to fly to London to see my wife. She's in the hospital there." He held up the bag of medications. "These are her pills. Special ones that help with her heart condition. I always bring them when I visit because the hospital sometimes runs out. But they took them away. They say the bottles are too big and the pills look suspicious." William's voice was very quiet and calm, but Emma could hear the pain in it. "I've been married to my Mary for 52 years. She's been sick for 6 months now, and I fly to see her every week. I just want to take care of her." Emma felt tears in her own eyes. Here were four strangers, all facing the same impossible situation. They were all ordinary people caught in circumstances beyond their control, feeling small and powerless against rules they didn't understand. The airport suddenly felt very cold and unwelcoming, full of barriers instead of bridges. But sometimes, in the darkest moments, unexpected light appears. After watching the painful scene with the security officer, Emma saw James walk away from the counter with his shoulders slumped in defeat. He found an empty chair in the waiting area and sat down. Heavily, his head dropped into his hands, and Emma could see his whole body shaking slightly. The wooden box with his grandfather's knife sat on the floor beside him, forgotten for the moment. Something about the way James sat reminded Emma of her 8-year-old son Tom, when he was really upset. Tom would sit exactly like that when he had a bad day at school or when the other kids were mean. To him, Emma's heart went out to this young man who was clearly struggling with something much bigger than just missing knives, without really thinking about it. Emma left her own suitcase with the check-in agent and walked over to where James was sitting. She sat down in the chair next to him, being careful not to get too close. She didn't want to scare him or make him uncomfortable. "Are you okay?" she asked gently, using the same soft voice she used when Tom was sad. James looked up, clearly surprised that a stranger was talking to him. His eyes were red, and Emma could see he had been crying. But there was something else in his expression, surprise at her kindness. "I'm sorry," James said, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "I don't usually break down like this in public. It's just, this is really important to me." Emma smiled at him warmly. "You don't need to apologize. I heard what you told the security officer. You're going to a cooking competition." James nodded. "Yes, in Birmingham. It's the biggest competition I've ever entered. I've been dreaming about this for 3 years, ever since I graduated from cooking school." He looked down at the box of knives. "These belong to my grandfather. He was the best cook I ever knew. He taught me everything. How to hold a knife properly, how to cut vegetables, how to make the perfect sauce. He died last year, and cooking is the only way I still feel connected to him." Emma felt her heart break for this young man. She could hear the love in his voice when he talked about his grandfather. It reminded her of how she felt about her own grandmother Rose. "What if we found a way to ship them overnight?" Emma suggested. "I know it's expensive, but maybe we could figure something out. The knives would get to Birmingham by tomorrow morning, and you could still use them in the competition." James looked at her with hope in his eyes for the first time. "Do you really think that could work? I mean, overnight shipping is usually very expensive. I spent all my savings on the competition entry fee and the plane ticket. I don't have any money left." Emma didn't hesitate for even a second. She reached into her purse and pulled out her credit card. "Let me help you. We'll figure out the shipping together. Sometimes we all need help, and sometimes we're the ones who can give it." James stared at her in amazement. "But you don't even know me. Why would you do this for a complete stranger?" "Because you remind me of my son. Emma said simply. And because I know what it's like to have something precious that connects you to someone new. Love, as they were talking, Lucy Davis, the teacher who had been having trouble with her electronics, walked over to them. She had been listening to their conversation, and her face was full of kindness. "Excuse me," Lucy said. "I couldn't help but overhear. Did you say you need overnight shipping? I work for a shipping company. Well, I used to before I got this new teaching job. I still have contacts there. I might be able to get you a discount rate." Emma and James looked at each other in surprise. Here was another stranger offering to help. "That's so kind of you," Emma said. "Are you sure you don't mind?" Lucy smiled. "Not at all. I'm having my own problems with these new regulations. But that doesn't mean I can't help someone else. We're all in this together, right?" Just then, William Brown, the elderly man with the confiscated medications, slowly walked over to their little group. Despite his own troubles, he had a gentle smile on his face. "Excuse me. Young people," William said in his soft voice, "I've been watching you help each other, and it reminds me of my own children. They're always helping their friends and neighbors. That's what matters most in life, not the rules or the problems, but how we treat each other." William sat down carefully in a nearby chair. "I may be old, but I know something about solving problems. Maybe we can help each other figure out solutions." In that moment, something magical happened. For strangers who had been facing their problems alone suddenly became something more. They became a family of support, choosing to lift each other up instead of facing their difficulties by themselves. Use a warm, empathetic to Nellie for new friends had been sitting together for about an hour, working on solutions to their problems. Emma had helped James arrange overnight shipping for his grandfather's knives, and Lucy had gotten him a good discount through her company contacts. William had made several phone calls about his wife's medications. As they waited for their flights, they noticed a man in a TSA uniform walking toward them. Emma tensed up a little. She expected this security officer to be strict and unfriendly, maybe even angry that they were causing delays and problems. But as the man got closer, she could see that his eyes looked kind. Though very tired, he appeared to be in his 40s, with graying hair and a gentle face. "Excuse me," the man said politely. "I'm Robert Garcia, and I work for sir. I've been watching your group help each other, and I wanted to talk to you during my break." Emma was surprised by how warm his voice sounded. "Are we in trouble?" she asked nervously. Robert smiled and shook his head. "No, not at all. Actually, I wanted to apologize for the difficulties you're all facing today. I know these new regulations seem harsh and unfair." He sat down in an empty chair near their group. "I've been working airport security for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of upset passengers, but I've also seen why we need these rules." James looked at Robert with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "Last year alone, we prevented 3 major security incidents because of regulations like these," Robert explained. "One involved someone trying to bring liquid explosives in perfume bottles. Another was a person who had weapons hidden inside what looked like sports trophies. The third was someone carrying dangerous chemicals in medicine bottles." Emma felt a chill go down her spine. Really, people actually do things like that. Robert nodded sadly. "Unfortunately, yes, most people are good and honest, like all of you, but there are some who want to hurt others. My job is to keep everyone safe, even when it means making difficult decisions that hurt good people." He looked directly at Emma. "I have a daughter who's 8 years old, just like your son. When I saw you struggling with leaving behind your grandmother's perfume bottles and your boy's trophy, it broke my heart. I understand what these belongings mean to you." Emma felt tears forming in her eyes again. "It's just hard to see the bigger picture when you're losing something precious," she said quietly. Robert leaned forward in his chair. "That's exactly what makes you human, caring about the things that connect us to the people we love. But sometimes, protecting what matters most means making difficult choices that hurt in the short term." He paused and looked at each of them. "I go home every night knowing that my work might have saved lives. But I also go home knowing that I had to take away things that were precious to good people like you. It's not easy." James had been quiet during this conversation, but now he spoke up. "I was so angry earlier, but I never thought about it from your perspective. You're just trying to keep people safe." "That's right," Robert said, "and I'm glad you were able to ship your knives. Cooking is a beautiful art, and I hope you do well in your competition." Thanks to Emma's generosity and Lucy's connections, James had successfully arranged for his grandfather's knives to be shipped overnight to Birmingham. The shipping company had given them a special rate, and the knives would arrive at his hotel by morning. William had also made progress with his situation. After several phone calls, he had reached his wife's doctor at the London hospital. The doctor had arranged for the hospital pharmacy to have all of Mary's medications ready when William arrived. "You know," William said, looking at the group with appreciation, "I've been traveling for 60 years. I've seen airports change, security rules change, and the world change. But one thing that never changes is human kindness." He smiled at Emma, James, and Lucy. "Today, I learned that strangers can become angels when we need them most. You didn't have to help each other, but you chose to. That's what makes the world a better place." Emma looked round at her new friends and then at Robert. She realized that while she had to leave her grandmother's perfume bottles behind, she was carrying something much more valuable with her. She was carrying the knowledge that good people still existed in the world. People who cared about others, people who helped strangers, and people who did difficult jobs to keep everyone safe. The airport suddenly didn't feel cold and unwelcoming anymore. It felt like a place where people from all walks of life came together, each carrying their own stories, their own struggles, and their own capacity for kindness. 6 months had passed since that difficult day at the airport, and Emma's life had changed in ways she never expected. She was sitting in her new office, much bigger than her old one, looking at a contract that had just been signed. Her business was not just surviving anymore, it was thriving. The important meeting in Manchester had gone perfectly, and that first contract had led to 3 more big deals. Her financial worries were behind her, and Tom was happy in his school. But the most important thing Emma had gained that day wasn't money or business success. She had gained lifelong friends who had become like family to her. Emma picked up her phone and called James. Something she did every week. His voice was happy and excited when he answered. "Emma, perfect timing. I just finished preparing for tonight's dinner rush," James said. "You won't believe how busy the restaurant has been." James had not won first place in the cooking competition in Birmingham, but he had won second place, which was amazing for someone so young. More importantly, the competition had given him confidence and connections. A local businessman had been so impressed with James's cooking that he helped him open a small restaurant in his hometown. The restaurant was called 3 Generations, named after James, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather, who had all used the same set of knives. "I still have the photo you took of me with grandfather's knives right next to my second place trophy," James told Emma. "Every customer who comes in asks about it, and I get to tell them the story of how a kind stranger helped me achieve my dream." Emma smiled as she remembered that day. After James had successfully shipped his knives and won his prize, he had insisted on taking a photo with the knives and trophy together. Emma had helped him frame it, and now it hung in the most important place in his restaurant. Next, Emma called Lucy, who was just finishing her day at the primary school where she now taught. Lucy had gotten the teaching job she had interviewed for, and she loved working with children. But she had also done something special with her difficult airport experience. "Emma, you have to hear about what happened today," Lucy said excitedly. "I helped a family at the airport navigate the new regulations. They were so confused and upset. But I was able to explain everything and help them repack their luggage properly." Lucy had started a volunteer program at the local airport every weekend. She spent a few hours helping travelers understand the security rules and regulations. She had turned her own difficult experience into a way to help others avoid the same confusion and stress. "I keep thinking about that day we met," Lucy continued, "how scared and alone I felt. I don't want anyone else to feel that way if I can help it." Emma's heart warmed as she thought about her friend's generous spirit. Lucy could have simply forgotten about her bad experience. But instead, she chose to use it to help others. When Emma called William, she could hear the happiness in his voice immediately. His wife Mary had recovered fully from her illness and was back home with him, but they had both decided to do something meaningful with their experience. "Mary and I were at the airport again yesterday," William told Emma. "We've been volunteering there twice a week, helping travelers who are having problems with the new rules. Yesterday, we helped a young mother who was crying because they took away her baby's special blanket. We sat with her and helped her understand why the rules existed, and we helped her find a solution." William and Mary had become like grandparents to many confused travelers. They offered comfort, practical advice, and most importantly, they showed people that someone cared about their problems. Emma had kept in touch with Robert, the TSA agent, too. Through their conversations, she had learned that Robert had a daughter named Sophia who was the same age as Tom and loved playing football just as much. Emma had made a decision that surprised even herself. She had Tom's trophy shipped to Sophia as a gift of friendship. "Mom," Tom had said one evening after Emma explained what she had done, "you gave away my trophy, but you brought home something better, stories about how people help each other." Emma had been amazed by her son's wisdom. Tom was right. The trophy was just a piece of metal and plastic, but the stories and friendships Emma had gained were priceless. As Emma sat in her office that evening, she realized something important. The most valuable things we carry aren't in our suitcases or our hands. They're in our hearts, the memories we make, the kindness we show, and the love we share. These things can never be taken away by any regulation or rule. Sometimes losing what we think we need helps us discover what we truly value. And sometimes the greatest security comes not from rules, but from the knowledge that we're all in this journey together.